Welcome back to the Midterm Rental Mastery Show. My name is Tanisha Spencer. So I just got married about a month ago, so I have to get used to saying the new name too. So I'm going to change it on the screen to Tanisha Epps Spencer so people know that I'm still me with a new last name. And if you guys didn't see on Instagram or any other social media, it really wasn't me posting, but it was Pace about my wedding because he came to my wedding, which is super, super exciting. So, again, newly married, back for the Midterm Rental Mastery Show. And today, what I want to talk about is some top tips on getting started with midterm rentals, specifically related to arbitrage. But a lot of these things are going to be translatable because there's some owners that are coming to me now asking questions about leasing their properties to other people to arbitrage because they don't want to manage them. I get a lot of those requests on my own as well from property owners. So I'm just going to run through some top things to think about from start to launch that you should really consider as you're getting on the road to your midterm rental journey. So the first part is talking about market research. So, one question I get asked on a regular basis is, how do I determine the market that I want to be in? How do I figure out if I'm actually going to have clients? Now, remember, the biggest thing that I always talk about is knowing your client avatar. You have to know who it is that you're going to serve. So, it's really important if you're just getting started to research your local real estate market really detailed. You're going to look for areas that have consistent demand for what a midterm rental would be. And again, I know most of you probably know I don't really like the term midterm rental. It's because it doesn't really mean anything without your client avatar. So, are you in an area that has corporate travelers that would be coming to your area because there's large corporations? Like, let's say you have an Amazon or some really large company there that would be bringing executives or people that have to travel for extended time periods. Are you near a school, a university that has students, and maybe you would like to do student housing? Do you have temporary workers in your area? A big one that a lot of people don't think about is construction and also solar. I've actually gotten some contracts from solar companies because they have people coming in from out of state because they don't have enough people locally to try to help with those contracts that they're building. You know, the people that go knocking on your doors, asking if you've ever considered solar panels. So those are just a few of the client avatars that you can go after, but you really want to look at what's happening in your area and also think about how many people actually live in the population that you're considering. Because if you live in an area that has a population, and not saying that you have to necessarily do business in the area where you live, but for example, if you're in an area that has 500 people total, is that really an area that somebody's going to need an extended stay with you? Not because it's a vacation spot, etc. So those are just some things to think about. And then as far as market research, you want to look at the competition. What's happening in your area? Go on to Airbnb and see what's listed there. See how many people are having their properties listed for 30 plus day stays. And on Airbnb's platform, it's 28 plus days. So really look around on these different sites, including Furnish Finder. That's a really great resource. If you haven't seen my Furnish Finder series that I did, please go back and check that out. I'm actually supposed to be on the Furnish Finder podcast coming up in I think another month, a month and a half, something like that. I'm pretty excited about that one. So use them as research just to kind of look at the maps and see what's happening. One of the biggest pieces too is always check your regulations for the state. So you're going to check zoning laws, you're going to check building codes if you happen to be per se building, or if you're looking at an occupancy thing for your particular rental. And you want to look at short-term rental regulations. And the reason I say that is not because short and midterm are exactly the same, but it's because everywhere has different rules. And what I say is a short-term rental in my state is not the same in another state. And what I would say is a midterm rental in one area may not be. The next thing that you're going to start looking at as well when you go into the part about choosing properties, you're going to look at is, hey, what are the rules for the HOA? Now, there are restrictions in a lot of areas on subleasing and the time frame for rental, so it's something really important to watch. Now, the next thing is choosing your property. It is so important to choose the right type of property based on who you choose as your client avatar. Because if you choose a single family home, but you're trying to cater to travel medical professionals and they're traveling alone because they typically do, is a 5-bedroom home the most advantageous for them? Probably not. So really think about the amenities that are provided, the furnishings that you're providing, and are you going to do a hybrid strategy of midterm and short term, or are you only doing midterm? It's really important for you to think about how engaged you'd like to be, how often you're looking to do turnover, and the type of clientele that you can actually get. Okay, so the next thing is the condition of the property and maintenance. So this is a big one, especially for arbitrage, but also for owned properties. So I've had some people reach out to me recently as we're going through our consultations, and they're bringing properties over that are really old, they're really run down, and they don't cash flow as long-term rentals. And so what's happening right now is a lot of people are saying, well, I'm just going to turn it into a midterm rental to try to make more money. Well, if it doesn't work as a long-term rental money-wise, and it's not really a great place, how are you going to get people to want to come and stay with you? So the condition of the property is really, really important. So, like the last 2 that I just purchased, I bought one last month in North Carolina. I bought that on sub 2 where I took over the payments on someone else's mortgage and I turned that one into a midterm rental. The house was built in 2022. It literally needed no work. We just had to furnish it. And then I just closed on one this week on Monday. That one was a pre-foreclosure. I was able to help the owner catch up the arrears on their loan, also taking that one over subject to. That one also built in 2022. It's basically brand new. The only thing we're going to have to do is touch up some paint, and that's pretty much it. So these won't have a lot of maintenance problems. They won't have a lot of condition issues. But here's the thing to think about. If you are arbitraging a property, who's going to be responsible for the maintenance? Is it you and is it the owner? And if it's going to be you, set a limit. Do not agree to pay for every single thing. And I've also been hearing some people that are taking on properties that they have to come in and do major repairs. I personally would not do that. I would just potentially pass on the house and move on to another one, unless you and the owner are working on that together, or you're getting a rent reduction, or you just are getting a crazy, crazy discount on their rent, and you're going to make 3, 4, 5 times what you put into it, because otherwise you have to determine if it's worth it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is financial analysis. So you've got to look at the costs of what it is going to be to run that property. How much is the rent or your mortgage if you purchased it? What are the utility costs? Are you paying a property manager or some other service to help you bring in clients? Are you paying any additional cleaning fees? Are you paying any additional maintenance? What other costs are you covering that still allows you to make a profit? The internet, if you have like a Nest service or security service, all of those things are really important to consider. I am seeing a lot of people on arbitrage lately offering people more money than traditional rent. Why? If you're going to give them all the benefits of what it is to work with you, they're going to have their property cleaned on a consistent basis. Their property is basically professionally managed. You're keeping track of all your tenants. You're letting the owner know if there's some maintenance problem on a regular basis. Why do you need to pay them extra rent? Just something to think about. So your pricing strategy, you're going to have to determine what that looks like. And in order to do that, you need to do research on listings that are in your area. And then you set your rates competitively, but also determine how much you're willing to make. Now, for me, if I'm going to make $300 a month over top of all the other stuff I have to do, am I really making that much money? No, because at some point I have to put some level of time into it. And I'm not one of those sit back and just wait for opportunities to come to me. I'm going out and chasing them. So my time has a value in terms of the money that I'm bringing in. For me, I really don't try to take on a property if I'm not going to make minimum $1,000 a month cash flow minimum. And that's kind of on the low end. But again, seasonality, occupancy changes, etc. And you have to be prepared for the fact that you're going to have some levels of vacancy at some point in your property. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is legal things like lease agreements. So on the front end, if you're arbitraging, your lease agreement with the landlord should encompass two really important things. And I, again, am not an attorney. So you'll see on the site on YouTube where in my description, it gives you a nice disclaimer. I am not an attorney. So this is just advice based on my experience. Make sure that your lease agreement has a sublease agreement that allows you to sublease the property to other people. That is extremely, extremely important that your landlord knows exactly what you're doing. The next piece is, again, that sublease agreement. That part is really important, and it should outline the responsibilities of what you're going to do, what the landlord's going to do. And then the next part of that agreement is your agreement with the tenants. What's your responsibility? What are the terms? What are their responsibilities? You can go on sites like avail.co and create a lease agreement. I have the link down in the description so you can check that out. Now, one big thing that is coming up to me so often, which actually was one of the things that sparked this video today, is insurance. So I'm hearing a lot of people ask, what do I do about insurance on an arbitrage? What do I do about insurance on a midterm rental in general? Depending on what you're doing with your property will determine the type of insurance and the coverage that you'd like to have. So I have two companies that I would encourage you to just get a quote from just to see what the pricing is going to be. The first one for arbitrage is Proper Insurance, and there's a link down in the description for Proper Insurance. They provide rental coverage for arbitrages. I have used them before. And I will say the coverage is not necessarily the cheapest, but what's more important to you, protection or the dollars? If you do it right, the money will pay for itself. The next company is Steadily Insurance. Now, they've kind of gone back and forth a little about whether they're going to cover arbitrages. So as of this video, I can't tell you which one they're doing. Call them and get a quote, okay? The cool thing is they actually write policies also for long-term rentals and for what I'm doing in midterm rentals. So I just bought those last two properties. I have Steadily Insurance on both of those. My landlord or my arbitrage that I have on one of my apartments had Proper Insurance. So I've worked with both of them. Again, the links to those are in the description. Get a quote. It doesn't hurt you to get a quote and just find out what they have available in your city, your state. Everywhere is different. They might not be available, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Okay. The biggest piece I really want to harp on, which came up today during one of my conversations, was what happens if this doesn't work out, especially if you're doing an arbitrage. And this is why, especially if you own a property, that I always encourage people to make sure that these work as long-term rentals. So you can always fall back on that. Now, me in creative finance, I know how to do wraps, where I have someone else that can buy the property and I become the bank really in the middle. But not everybody's doing that strategy, and that's okay. The biggest thing is please have a buyout clause. And if you don't know what a buyout clause is, if you've ever seen an apartment lease, which you can Google and find an apartment lease online, okay, from a large apartment complex. In those leases, there's a buyout clause built in, which allows you to give notice and pay to get out of your lease without having to carry out the full lease term. If you're doing rental arbitrage, it is so important that you have that in your lease as a just in case to protect yourself. And then set some money aside as your money is coming in every month as a just in case, as a part of your holding costs off to the side that you never touch in the event that you need to use that money. I had someone recently that came to me and they had an arbitrage that they paid $3,100, I think, per month for this house. And unfortunately, they didn't get any bookings and they couldn't afford it. So, and they didn't have a buyout clause. So please make sure that's in your leases. Those are the big things that I really wanted to talk about on the front end of getting started with rental arbitrage or again, midterm rentals in general. There's a lot of things that you could do right, just like a lot of things that you could do wrong. And believe me, I've done some of the wrong things. I've done some of the right things. And it's just you learn as you go and you just continue working through the process. The biggest key, and I'm just going to harp on that, is make sure your contracts are solid and you have a plan. I've seen way too many people losing money in this business because they didn't have a plan. I hope those tips were super helpful, and on my next video, I'm going to do some deal breakdowns of the 2 properties that I just bought. I can't wait to show you, the one that I just bought with, Pace Morby and Abraham Gray, and that one, oh man, it's super, super beautiful. I can't wait to show it to you, and, I'm probably actually going there tomorrow to go and do a meetup with some people in North Carolina, so I should go post that right now. Anyway, thanks so much for subscribing. Thanks for watching. Check out my links down in the description. There's a bunch of services that I use. I have my Amazon store that has a lot of the things that I'm purchasing for my midterm rentals. And check them out and see if there's anything that can help you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode.